questions as. All right, so this is about understanding restaurant costs and controlling them to increase your profits. A few reasons restaurants fail. It's always tough to find a place to put that. Controllable costs are out of control, improper plate costs, inadequate inventory controls, employee theft or waste, and overstaffing. I work with a lot of clients, and as Jocelyn said, I've been with the SBDC since 2012. I spent 30 years in the industry, 18 out there in Los Angeles. I currently live outside of Chicago, and I work for two branches here and two branches there in California as well. So I'm going to kind of touch on these areas and kind of help you guys find ways to kind of tighten your belt, if you will. So again, this is me. We talked about the EDC and the SBDC. If you're not already a client, you should be. Our services are free to you. Like Jocelyn said, we have a team of over 30 advisors, all have different areas of expertise. We work together as a team. We sign confidentiality agreements every year, so you don't have to worry about us, trying to steal your widget or trying to, tell somebody about your story or something like that. And I do get paid for my time because what's free advice worth? But I love the idea that our funding comes from both from local municipalities and also from the SBA. And the idea is that if businesses are doing well, communities are doing well. So that's what we are here to help you do. All right, so let's start talking about controllable costs. These are things, some things you have no control over. Once you sign a lease, you can't change your lease terms unless you're in dire straits and you go and talk to your landlord and say, hey, help me out. But we're going to look at the things that you can control on a weekly basis. All right. One of them is absolutely your cost of goods sold, right? Making sure that we're charging properly for the food that we are selling. We've seen over the last couple of years, it's been in the news a lot about how proteins have gotten so much more expensive. Beef's up 15%, eggs are through the roof. The nice part about that is because it's made the news, clients are able to then say, okay, well, we do have to adjust our pricing, and the community understands a little better, right? So if you're not profitable, you're not going to stay in business. So I suggest my clients, look at their menu at least quarterly to see, all right, let's update our pricing. Now, I'll say in this, we're going to check the prices of what we're charging for things or what we're paying for our goods on a weekly basis. Every time things come in, we're going to check that price. But there will be times that we want to sit down and just go through the whole menu and say, okay, does this still make sense? Is this still selling? That kind of stuff. And even my clients who aren't in business and are working on a business plan or thinking about it, we also start with having these conversations, right? If you got to set the menu pricing right, or you're never going to make it. Um, Salaries and wages, especially overtime. There in California, anything over 8 hours in a day is overtime. So if you schedule your people to work 8 hour shift and they clock in 5 minutes early and clock out 5 minutes late, that's 10 minutes of overtime. I used to run Geisha House in Hollywood. We had 100 some employees. On a shift, there'd be 40 or 50 people. Can you imagine 10 minutes of overtime for 50 people? So I usually try to schedule my people 7.5 hours, right? So I give myself a little bit of that bleed time. You really have to tighten the belt and keep things as tight as you can. Marketing, making sure that what you're spending money on makes sense, right? And that you're utilizing your marketing budget in the best way possible. The nice thing is that marketing has gotten much cheaper. In the 30 years I've been doing this, we used to have to take out full page ads in magazines, $9,000, $10,000 for a magazine ad. Nowadays, with social media and TikTok and such, you can get people following you and liking you for a much more reasonable monthly spend. Utilities, making sure that you're not wasting energy, repair and maintenance. And the big part of this is often maintenance, right? Where we're making sure that condenser coils are sprayed off on a regular basis, that we're keeping things clean, that we're checking on, gaskets on refrigerator doors and having kind of a checklist that, maybe once a month you're going through and you're looking at all these things because when things start to get a little bad, but if we don't fix them in the beginning, they become expensive repair bills down the road. Restaurant supplies, for me is anything you can't eat. So this is bleach and degreaser to-go containers, plastics like napkins, toilet paper, etc. Keeping an eye on this, making sure that we're keeping our inventory levels at the proper amount. Same thing with office supplies. So proper plate guides. So when I do a plate guide or cost out a plate of food, I only do the food, right? Some people say, "Oh, well, you gotta add the paper boat, you gotta add the napkin, you gotta add the labor that somebody did it." I don't add these in because if you put all three of those categories together into one number, when your costs are high, you got to unpackage it and say, okay, well, is this a food cost problem or a plate cost problem? Right? And the reason I don't put labor in it is, like I said, at 30 years in the business, I've never seen a cook make one thing at a time, right? They've got 40 things going on the flat top and the grill and the fryer. And, so how do you quantify, well, it took 10 minutes to make this? I track these separately. We're going to keep an eye on labor costs, but I want my plate cost just to be food. Okay, so this is an example of, a half pound burger. And I've got some Excel spreadsheets that are real basic that I work with my clients on. It's almost like a menu card where it says, here's all the ingredients that go into this, here's the preparation, and here's a picture of how it looks when it's done, right? The idea being that you can print that out and put it on a shelf in the restaurant, and you can pull it out and say, "Oh, we got a new employee. Okay, well, here's how we make this burger," right? Because you need consistency. It's very important that when you are, you know, dealing with the public, they want to know that, hey, every time I come in here, my burger is going to be the same, right? It's not like, oh, sometimes I get 4 pieces of bacon, sometimes I get 1 piece of bacon, sometimes I get 12 ounces of fries, sometimes I get 3 ounces of fries, right? They want consistency. So this is an example of going through and kind of costing out everything that's on this plate, right? A Kaiser bun, ketchup, onion ring, bacon, etc. So if you are operational and you're dealing with Cisco or US Foods or Performance or one of these companies, using their pricing makes sense. If you're not operational, I suggest that my clients use grocery store pricing, right? It's readily available and you can often just find it online. You don't have to go into the store. But if you are, when you become operational and you're using Cisco or something, you're going to save 10 or 15% maybe. But I would rather have you build that into your cost, right? So that your cushion is right. So all of this adds up to be $3.05 in this example that I've done here, right? So I like my client's food cost goal to be 25% or less. Now it used to be 30, but labor used to be 30. And labor has gone up and up and up every year. Labor is really 35 or more. So we have to pass that cost on to the consumer, right? At the end of the day, in the restaurant world, if you're making 5 or 10%, it's nickels and dimes, right? But if you're making 5 or 10%, you don't have enough margin to say, oh, well, I'll absorb the higher labor costs by keeping my food costs at the same spot. Okay. So with a goal of 25%, looking at that total plate cost, right, and divided by 0.25 is going to give you the price of that plate. So in that example, it was $3.05, comes out to $2.20. Now, that doesn't mean put it on your menu at $12.20. Is it $11.95? Is it $12.50? How do you do your pricing on your menu? Is it just 12 bucks? And I often have clients where, they're charging 10 bucks for a burger. I'm like, well, why are you charging $10? They're like, because the guy down the street's charging $10. And I'm like, okay, well, that's market research, which is important. We want to know what he's charging, but he's using a quarter pound frozen patty on a sesame seed bun. You're using a half pound Black Angus hand formed on a Kaiser roll with big, so they're two different items, right? So he's charging 10 for his. You can't charge 25 for yours, but you could likely charge 15 or 16, right? So, and we can play around with the portions to get to that kind of sweet spot of where we want to be. I used to run Rusty Surf Ranch on the Santa Monica Pier. It was a live music venue down there. And we had every year we'd sit down, obviously, a couple times a year and go through the whole menu, especially with the seasonality. Like summer, we're doing 2,000 covers in a day. you know, winter, January, February, we're lucky if 30 people come through the door all day. So we would have to adjust this. And I was looking at, we had a $15 half pound burger on the menu. And I was realizing that people were either splitting that burger or taking half of it to go home with them. So I changed it to a third pound Black Angus on a Kaiser roll, similar to this example here. Much better meat, much better bun. Was still able to lower the price $1. So it went from like 15.95 to 14.95. But now people weren't sharing it anymore. It was still it was a better burger, but it was the proper portion that people were eating that and then either buying a second burger or buying a chicken sandwich for whoever else was with them. So I was increasing my sales by doing that, right? So you want to watch to make sure that your portions aren't massive. This isn't claim jumper. We want to make sure that people are able to eat what we're serving them. And once you get these costs in line, it's important to spot check from time to time that your staff is following those guidelines. So I would have a server ring in, a burger under somebody who doesn't know it's me on a table or something like that. And when it would come out, I would take a look at that plate. Oh, okay, there's 2 pieces of bacon, there's 2 pieces of tomato. This is 6 ounces of fries, like I've laid out, not too many or too little, right? So we want that consistency. We want to make sure that the staff is following our guidelines. Okay, so we do have what's called the menu mix, where, like a high-end steakhouse, you can't sell a filet mignon at 25% cost of goods. That would be a 60 or $70 steak. So what you do is you sell that at 35 or 40% cost of goods, and then you sell them a loaded baked potato at 10 or 12% cost of goods. And as long as you're selling a steak with a potato, that average is going to get you to that 25%. So I don't want people to think like, oh, everything on the menu has to be 25% because you're going to have, a pasta dish on there that's 16%. And, people say, well, I could lower the price way down. You want to, there's a bit of menu engineering there. You don't want to have like a $7 item entree on the menu when the other entrees are 18, 20, $22, right? So you want to make sure you have a balance there. So this menu mix is going to help us out. That'll get us to that average of 25%. All right. So how do we figure out cost of goods sold? So I believe in weekly inventory. I believe in coming in every Monday morning, or if you're closed Mondays, Tuesdays, or whatever it is, before the day is starts and counting everything in house, right? So all the food in the walk-in, all the food on the cook line, all the beer in the cooler, all the beer behind the bar, liquor, etc. And I have different categories for each of those, but I count everything and keep, this will be my beginning inventory, right? Anything that comes in during the week, I then add to that as well, but in the proper category. It's not like, hey, I spent, $5,000 with Cisco. It all goes to food. You got to look through there. Well, these are cleaning supplies, so don't put cleaning supplies in with the food costs, right? You got to make sure that you're coding and properly tracking things. Then the following Monday, when I count again, that beginning inventory for the next week is my ending inventory for the last week, right? So I take that starting inventory, add my purchases, and take away my ending inventory to figure out what my usage is. So again, in this example, $12,000 starting, we brought in $3,000 in food during the week, $10,000 left at the end of the week. So, okay, there's $5,000 that we used. This $5,000 of usage, looking at the point of sale system, what was food sales for the week, Monday through Sunday night at close, right? In this example, 21,000, 23.8% food cost. There's a couple of reasons why I do weekly inventory. One, the staff sees it, right? So the staff understands, hey, they're counting everything every week, right? So if you only do it monthly or you do it quarterly or whatever, you're never going to be able to go back and figure out what happened. In kitchens, sometimes things happen. Hey, I had a client that's got a taco place and their staff improperly rotated the carne asada, so they lost about 20 pounds of carne asada at $15 a pound, right? So if she wasn't keeping track on a weekly basis, obviously her food costs spiked that week, but she could go back and be like, oh, okay, well, if I factor in the cost of that food I had to throw away, then we are in line. So I know where the problem was. It still happened, but at least I understand where the problem was. Okay. Okay, so targets for cost of goods. Like I said, I like my food costs to be 25% or less. Let that person in. Liquor cost, I like to have around 20%. Again, Grey Goose maybe 30, but well vodka's 6% cost of goods. So as long as you're selling an equal amount, you're going to end up at that 20%. Beer costs 22, wine costs 33. Okay, so projecting sales for even my clients that are operating, right? When we're staffing and when we're ordering, we like to make sure that we're doing so as tight and as properly as we can, right? Um, the other thing about like the weekly inventory is that, hey, we're keeping our levels where they need to be. We understand what we need to buy to get through a week. Ideally, and I always start my week on a Monday because people spend more during the weekend, and it's kind of a good reset to be like, okay, Monday is going to be our slower day. So when you come into the restaurant on Monday, you should have enough food in a perfect world, enough food, on the cook line for that day's business, and enough booze and beverages behind the bar for that day's business, and have a completely empty walk-in cooler, a completely empty liquor room, and a completely empty, dry storage space. That would be ideal. Because I walk into places sometimes and I'll, in a liquor room and someone will have like, a case of some ridiculous booze. I'm like, why do you have this? And they're like, well, it was cheaper. It's 56 cents a bottle cheaper. Now you have, it's 30 bucks a bottle. You have $400 sitting here on the shelf that's going to sit here for 2 years, right? So I would much rather, now obviously some things you have to buy. You're not going to go through on a weekly basis, but understanding those kind of par levels and what you need to order is going to be appropriate, especially when you're dealing with food that's going to go bad, right? Don't get in 50 pounds of beef when you only go through 20 pounds a week, right? You want to make sure that you're always having fresh product coming in. And like my poor taco client, make sure that your staff is properly rotating. You're putting day dots on things. So, hey, this came in on Tuesday, this came in on Monday, this is the first to use, right? So we make sure that we're not having that problem. So even when you're operational, looking back at the last week in sales and saying, especially if there's seasonality, right? Spring break would just happen, so some places were slower, some places were busier. What kind of things are going on that are, as you're thinking about the following week? Hey, last Monday we did $1,500 in sales. This coming Monday, there's no special events. The weather seems similar. I think we'll probably do another 1,500. Or, hey, it's, Easter Sunday, everybody's off on Monday. Maybe we're going to be busy. Maybe we're going to be slow. Go back and look at the year prior, especially when you're talking about New Year's Eve, 4th of July, these type of things where there's special events. All right, how was sales last year? What were specials? What sold? What didn't sell? What were the peak times? That kind of stuff and staffing appropriately, right? So, hey, on Monday, we did 1,500 in sales, but we only had one server on and we were hustling. Okay, well, maybe we need to add that second server. Would we have done 2,000, right? So we're kind of making sure that we're keeping an eye on a weekly basis on the entire operation. So this is an example of a weekly sales projection. And again, this is off of just an Excel document that I created. So again, like I said, I start my week on a Monday because people spend more towards the weekend. Just we found, right? So down here, I look at what is the average person spending, right? Now, somebody may come in and spend $30, but somebody else comes in and spends 10. Okay, what do we think the average is spending per person is how I like to figure this out. Like, I got a wife and three kids, so when I go get food somewhere, it's $100. That's not $100 that I'm eating. That's $20 per person for the five people that I'm feeding, right? So again, if you're operational and you're using a point of sale system, it's very easy to go back and look at, hey, what are Mondays? What's our average per person Monday for lunch, right? How many covers are we doing? A cover is a person. How many people are coming through the door, right? So in this scenario, $15 for lunch, $25 for dinner. Maybe they're drinking some beers or having a glass of wine or they're getting an appetizer or a dessert, right? Again, we tend to see that people spend more for dinner than they do for lunch. And then talking about, okay, well, how many bodies do we think are coming in based on what we did last week or based on theoretically we're going to open a restaurant in 3 months, right? But so 40 covers, 60 covers for dinner, right? Then, on the next slide, we're going to make sure that we're staffing appropriately, right? Don't tell me that you have 150 people coming in for lunch and you're going to have one server and one cook. Not going to happen. But also don't say, well, I'm going to have four servers and six cooks when I got 30 people coming in for lunch, right? That just doesn't work. So we want to make sure that we're keeping that as tight as possible. So this, kind of is an example of how to forecast out a week. It will give you the weekly sales and then annual sales. Okay. Let me know if there's any questions as I'm going through all this. I know it's kind of a lot, but so then here's a scheduling worksheet. Again, if you're operational, I suggest using scheduling apps. They're amazing. They save you a ton of time. It used to take me 3 hours to write a schedule, and then when I started using schedule app, it take me 15 minutes. But you can often see what your labor cost is, right? And making sure that you're running your hours as tight as you can. Again, back to Rusty's. We used to open at 11:30, but nobody came in until like 11:45, 11:50. So I shifted to start opening at noon because 5 or 10 minutes people will wait, but then I eliminated 30 minutes of hourly from 10 employees. On a daily basis, that's 40, $50 per day. That adds up real quick on a monthly and an annual basis, right? By not really making a change. I didn't say, hey, I'm gonna open at 1. It was still, hey, I'm still within the meal time, but that 30 minutes where looking back at the point of sale and doing, hourly sales and quarterly hourly sales, seeing that nobody was coming in anyway, let's go ahead and run as tight as we can. Now, you don't want to make that adjustment on a weekly basis. Oh, hey, last week we opened at 11. This week we'll open at 11:30, then 12, then 1, so you still have to have consistency for your customers, but looking at it and seeing, okay, what does make the most sense? And as we're looking at the menu, all right, are our hours still in line with what they need to be? Are we in the winter time, should we be closing the kitchen at 8 or 9 and in the summertime 9 or 10, depending on what the customers are doing and where you're bringing people in. So this is a staffing worksheet. Again, basic Excel document. And it does a couple of things. One, it helps you calculate what your labor cost is, but it also tells you what your staffing needs are, right? So I had a guy doing a Viennese gelato shop on Rodeo Drive many years ago. And he was going to be open breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I was like, great, how many people do you think you'll need? He's like, oh, 5 or 6. And I'm like, I think you need 24. And he did this and realized he needed 25. He thought I was crazy, but he's like, you don't want people more than 8 hours a day. As we've said, time and a half will kill you. You don't want people more than 5 days a week. You want to give people time off and you want to make sure that, you're staffed appropriately. So this will let you know how many servers should I hire, how many bartenders, how many cooks, etc. All right. So then calculating labor costs for, oh, go back. There we go. So labor costs, we're going to take our total wages, which on that other page, had the hourly, any salary that's going in there too, your managers or anybody, your kitchen manager, your front of house manager, et cetera. And then we add payroll tax. Payroll tax is unemployment, Social Security, FICA, those kind of things. It's generally going to be 15 to 18%. So when I am forecasting, I like to overestimate my costs and underestimate my sales. So if it's 15 to 18%, I'm going to use 18%. So you take those total wages, you multiply it, you add 18% onto that as well. You divide it by what your total sales are. And again, our goal for this is hopefully going to be around 35%. Used to be 30, but we didn't used to pay people 18, 19, $20 an hour. Okay, so inventory control. Like I said, weekly inventories, it's going to make sure that you're staying on top of that things are you're properly stocked, right? That you're not overstocking, you're not wasting money, you're cutting down on the amount of waste that you're having. Um, Technology has come a long way and is great for this too. Often, with an inventory control program, if you have a point of sale, I suggest let's talk to the point of sale and see what integrates already with them. A lot of the other ones will also margin edge and stuff will integrate with a ton of them, but often they'll have, an add-on widget to help you do that, right? So it's nice to be able to, with an iPhone as opposed to, we used to walk around with clipboards and Excel documents and make little notes of 1.5 and 2 point, and then they have to go and manually enter that. To be able to have a couple of people with iPhones or tablets and go around and be like, counting everything in different areas and it all comes together in one spot. Um, so making sure again that we're tracking things, food, liquor, beer, wine, non-alcoholic, etc. Checking your pricing on the invoices against your spreadsheet, right? So, Cisco and US Foods, unfortunately, salespeople make their money on what they charge you and what the margin is, right? So you will often find that they will inch up on you. And when you call and say, sometimes it's like, yeah, avocados fluctuate, limes fluctuate. I still call, hey, what's going on? Why did my case of limes go from 60 to $120 a case? Like what happened? And have them tell you that, well, that's supply and demand. Okay, they understand now that I'm keeping an eye on it. But otherwise, it's like, oh, well, they're adding a nickel or 50 cents a pound or something like that. And before you know it, you're like paying a dollar, $2 more. They've just been squeezing you a little bit. So any of those kind of discrepancies, I'm going to go right back to the salesperson and say, hey, what's up with this? And then the next time I order with them, be like, okay, what's the price this week? What other opportunities do we have? Maybe I need to talk to a different purveyor and see if I can get a different price on that, right? Making those kind of adjustments and really staying on top of it. Having par sheets and limiting your staff's access to the items is going to be helpful too. You don't want somebody coming in on Monday and prepping like it's Friday, right? Where they're like, oh, I cut, 50 peppers. And it's like, well, we're only going to use 3 peppers today. And, maybe on Friday or Saturday, we'll go through that many peppers, but we need to they're better off when they're fresh or that we're only utilizing what we need on a daily basis, right? So really staying on top of that. And again, there's seasonality to this and communicating with your staff to say, okay, where are we at? Okay, we need more onions. We need more tomatoes diced. We need, you don't want to run out on the shift and have people scrambling trying to get what they need to make the food because you got to keep that ticket time low, right? But there's a fine balance between just letting people over prep and you're like, what am I going to do with all this stuff now, right? A few other cost cutting tips. So utilities, turning off lights and equipment when not in use. Talking to the gas company and talking to power company and have them come in. They'll often do audits for you. Hey, this is a leaky door. Or this is if you change out these old light bulbs for LEDs, we'll give you a rebate on it, end up covering the cost of the light bulb. You're saving energy in the long run. I used to buy Pitco fryers, right? That were like 1,200 bucks for a Pitco fryer, and I would get a $600 instant rebate from the gas company. So it was like a $600 fryer. That's basically a free fryer. You don't fix that when it breaks. But the idea being, make sure you check with them before you buy because they have very specific lists of what they give rebates on. And it's down to, like model numbers. So just because you're buying a true refrigeration system, make sure that, okay, the one that you're looking at is actually on the rebate list. Um, you want to make sure that you're getting back as much as you can from them. Repair and maintenance, like I said, properly maintaining the equipment, whether it's being on a service plan with a refrigeration expert or having a checklist of things that, hey, we've got, a can of dust cleaner and we clean out the coils and make sure that they're all clean and keeping the gaskets running well and keeping things, operating at optimal levels that will help you from, having a refrigeration unit that runs low on Freon, then starts overheating, then it ends up burning out the compressor, right? The compressor on a refrigeration unit is the most expensive part. So we have to make sure that we're really staying on top of these things on a weekly basis. Okay, controlling costs on marketing, making sure that the promotion or discount makes sense. I never like to discount people that are already in my space, right? I like to discount people who aren't in my space that are coming in, right? Again, back to Rusty's on Santa Monica Pier, we'd have a ton of tourists in the summertime, right? So we had, our prices needed to be tourist style prices. But we also had a lot of locals in Santa Monica. So it's like, okay, well, let's do a locals only program where anybody within this zip code gets 20% off, right? So that's a way that the one customer that I'm never going to see again is paying what I need to be charging for that space. But the customer that I want coming on a regular basis, okay, let me give them, you know, a discount based on being a local. Um, I like doing stuff with schools. I'm the treasurer of the PTA for my kids' elementary school, but that's a great way to drive business into your space, right? Giving away a $50 gift card or two $25 gift cards for a silent auction or something like that. First of all, your cost of goods is 25%. So it's costing you 10, 12 bucks for that card. Now, what happens is generally a $25 gift card, they come into your space and, they're going to spend 40 or 50. But they'll see, even if they don't come in, even the people that don't buy it see that, oh, I know that restaurant, they're down the street, right? Oh, I like that they're supporting my kids' soccer team or the kids' band or those kind of things, right? So that kind of grassroots marketing is really what's going to build loyalty for you. Whenever possible, offering trade as part of the marketing or advertising costs, right? So, okay, my social media person wants $2,000 a month. Hey, will you do 1,500 and $500 in trade? I'll give you gift cards. You can bring your clients in here and eat and drink $500 worth of beverages and food, right? Where it's like, okay, again, that 500 bucks costing me 150. It makes more sense for me from a cash flow standpoint to try to do that. And now I'm having my social media person who is coming into my space or is sending people into my space, right? And any type of marketing efforts, you know, uh, coupons or flyers or any of that kind of stuff. I like to have an expiration date on it, and I like to have a way to track where it went, right? So, hey, we're gonna go do, this food festival. Okay, so let's make cards that are a bounce back for that food festival that I can see when they come in. Oh, it's from that event that we did. Because next year, when it comes back around, I want to be able to say, oh, okay, well, I spent about $1,500 between the registration and staffing and the food that I gave away at this food event. And then I was giving people 20% off, 25% off. 10% off doesn't get people excited. Nobody's coming in for 10% off in my mind. But, giving them a discount, now you drew them into the space. Okay, and then when they were here, they spent 30 or $40. Okay, that's worthwhile to me that I got 30 new customers who came from this event that I did, and now I'm seeing those people as a regular are coming back in. Um, Having a way to kind of track that is really important. So as the whole theme of this has been, profit margins are very small in the business, right? So we call it nickel and dime because if you're making 5 or 10% at the end of the year, you're a successful restaurant. So really keeping things as tight as you can on a weekly basis is important. And if it's not you that's doing it, if you have a general manager or managers that are doing it, having a way to incentivize them with a quarterly bonus or something like that to make sure that they're also keeping an eye on the cost as much as possible. All right, so that's my presentation. Any questions? And Jocelyn's going to send you this so that you'll see here when you get this, talks more about the EDC, has, a way to get in touch with the EDC, and you guys will all get this in an email. So,
Before we jump into any questions, thank you so much, Kevin, for the perfect and excellent presentation. I just wanted to give a little bit more information on the services that you can all access through the EDC Small Business Development Center. Our center supports, as I mentioned, primarily Ventura and Santa Barbara County, all at no cost, advising in various different areas: marketing, financial assistance, operations, legal compliance, human resources, and much more. Our advisors sit with you one-on-one to get to know your specific business and provide you with information and advice tailored to your situation. So you are more than welcome to meet with multiple advisors if you need assistance in multiple different areas at our center. So if you want to meet with an advisor for social media assistance or with someone on our financial team to review loan opportunities, you can. Our center also supports, as I mentioned, the LA County with international trade and technology-based company advising as well. So to get started with the EDC, as Kevin mentioned, there was a QR code that you can scan on your phone and sign up for an initial appointment. I'll also put down another email in the chat, the info@edcollaborative.com. You have my email there as well. You can contact either to get signed up, and I'll also provide a link for you to schedule an intake call with me as well. But other than that, just wanted to provide that information. And then, yeah, let's get into the questions. So I think we have one question from Emily White. Go ahead, Emily. You can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
This is actually Dan, but
Oh,
yeah,
apologies.
that's right. We're
Yeah,
together.
we're together.
Any advice on negotiating with vendors for pricing? Trying to get them back to where you need them.
Yeah, I always kept Cisco and US Foods, and they'd always come in and be like, "Oh, I should be the only person. I'll give you better pricing." I'm like, "Nah, it turns out I'm not a big chain, and I get better pricing when I pit you guys against each other." So you got to go kind of shop around, and that goes for everything. Like, one of my clients right now says, "Oh, all the POS companies are calling me and offering better credit card processing," and he's been with Toast for a long time, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's a nightmare to change. Why don't you tell Toast, hey, I'm getting offered better credit card processing, give me a better rate." And often they'll be like, "Oh, okay, let me do that." Right. So a lot of these purveyors are, you know, people aren't paying attention. So they're inching up, inching up, inching up. When you're, the squeaky wheel, then they're going to be like, "Oh, okay, I really do want their business. All right, well, let me shop around. I need a different bread provider. I don't like the produce you're getting me." There's other companies out there reaching out. And again, you don't want to have 40 different purveyors. But you want to make sure that you're meeting in person on a weekly basis with your salespeople, and that you're checking them and that you're keeping them in line. I think that it's mutually beneficial when your volume is where it is, that they're happy about the money that's coming in and they're happy to give you the best pricing. Another thing is if you are using Cisco or US Foods or any of these, going to their food shows. If you've never done that, it's important. Like we used to do, Lamb Weston French fries, right? And I would do 15 cases a week. So I could go to the food show and I could buy 350 cases, or basically sign an agreement that I'm buying 350 cases of the French fries, and I know I buy 15 a week. And then Cisco would send them to me as I needed them on a weekly basis. So I don't have to take 350 cases, but I locked my price in for that 350 cases. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you're locking your pricing in with that specific, not with Cisco, with the manufacturer, sort of.
Well, in that regard, it was, it's Cisco's food show. So Cisco was the one who was like, "Well, we're going to hold them for you, and you're going to get that price from us." You still had to get
Oh,
them from Cisco, but they weren't able to change the price from what you agreed to.
oh, okay. Yeah, I noticed like certain items that we were ordering on a regular basis would just, I would just go back to my purchase history and kind of repurchase from there, and certain things would just disappear, and then I go search for it and I'd find it. And I think that was just, them like, oh, change up a little bit so you couldn't just directly see the price had changed. And just it was like item by item it started happening, and so I started paying more attention to it. But yeah, trying to work with more vendors and get those prices down.
Yeah. Are you working with Cisco now or US
We were
Foods?
primarily working with Cisco. Just started working with Giordano's, and then we do a little bit with Chef's Warehouse too for some particular items. But
Okay. Yeah. I mean, staying on top of them, and if you're using Cisco's got a menu plating guide, and they can help you, like, especially on some of your more generic items. Like it's like, you guys are a brew pub, right?
Mhm.
So, if okay, well, we're doing burgers. All right. So is it an 80/20? What is it you're looking for? Are we able to get you and work with you on different things to get you the product that still the product that you want, but the best pricing for you?
Mhm.
Yeah, we still do a pretty high quality meat blend, which is what we do with the Chef's Warehouse. So,
Okay.
and they've tried selling us on cheaper cheaper meat for burgers or the frozen patties. And we're like, no.
Yeah, no, I mean you don't want to give up on it. Like we went to doing hand pressed burgers as opposed to frozen patties, and it certainly, yeah, the quality is much better. But again, like I said, what I did, I went from a half-pound burger that was too big. People don't want that much meat anymore. I went to a third-pound burger, and people were really responding to it, and it was better quality meat and better quality bun, and Tillamook cheddar cheese and the whole nine yards. So you can get people excited about it with a proper portion, right?
You have those like the plate guideline sample that you could share?
Sure, I'll send you, or I'll send it to Jocelyn, and she'll send it out. They're very basic Excel documents that I've created because
Yeah.
my clients have zero experience in Excel. Now, when I send them, I'm like, I'll send the staffing, the weekly sales projection, and the plate guys. And the way the plate guide is set up is it's basically, hey, what's the item? Is it each? Is it a pound? Is it this? Whatever it is, I'm not gonna it's not gonna pull a price from somewhere. You have to put the price in, right? So
Mm.
you may want to look at, Margin Edge or Orderly or some of these apps that, okay, it's going to cost us 150, $200 a month. Is it going to save me money in the long run? Because, Orderly, and I don't know if they're still doing this, but they used to, where you would put in there, hey, all your items, and they would give you on a weekly basis. Well, the black beans you want. Cisco's got them for this. U.S. Foods has them for this. Your produce person has them for this. All right, well, want to buy them from them, and you could kind of build your list off of what the current week's prices are. I don't know if that model is still working with them. I think it's called Get Order Up or something like that. Is because there's also like Restaurant 365, but they're like $500 a month.
Yeah.
So that's not, I don't know what Margin Edge is charging. I think they're three or so, but this Orderly was like 150. And looking at these kind of technology solutions, you always want to weigh one, am I going to use it? Right? Don't buy things you're not going to use. But like I said, back with scheduling apps, when I started doing scheduling apps, it made it so much easier for me to write a schedule and keep an eye on things and post it out. And we even have times where, we get slammed, and rather than me calling someone coming in, I would throw a shift available in an hour, and it would go out to everybody, and someone would grab it and come in. Perfect. That's what I needed, right? So, kind of weighing those kind of things, I think is good too. But that would
Yeah.
help you with going back on your order history, especially when you're using different purveyors. Cisco's not going to let you know what Giordano's charge you for it, right?
Yeah, Extra Chef is pretty good. Extra Chef will track the cost of goods and fluctuation in that, but unless they're actually good about sending the invoices to your particular email that you've asked them to 1,000 times, or you upload it yourself, it's like they know they don't want you analyzing it through Extra Chef.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. And then you'll see things like, there's been times where tomatoes go through the roof because there's a drought or something in Florida. It's like, okay, well, now tomatoes are by request only, right? We're not getting put a little sign on the door saying, hey, due to the cost of tomatoes, they're by request. You still want a tomato, we'll put it on your menu, but on your burger, but we're not going to put it on, and making those kind of fluctuations, right? Avocados are through the roof. Okay, how do we mitigate that?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I find that being involved in really talking to the people that are trying to sell you, and you got 100 people knocking on your door that want to sell you something, right? I don't suggest working with all of them, but utilizing them to kind of keep them in line. And yeah, Cisco, I mean, their produce sucks, right? So having a better produce company or something like that, but picking and choosing the things that make sense for you to get from them. But then I'll send those sheets to Jocelyn. And if you guys, aren't clients already, become clients of the SBDC. The program is amazing. Like I said, there's over.
Oh, we are.
Oh, you already are? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
This is
We
our
just,
third one this week.
what's that?
Our third program this week. So,
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. So yeah, you get in touch with Andres and Jocelyn and say, hey, I'd like to meet with Kevin and we can, dive into your stuff one on one.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I always tell people like it's not like a one and done, right? Like I've got clients that have been in business for 10 years that, I still meet with occasionally because it's like, hey, I got an idea or I'm thinking about this or we want to go open a second location or hey, I'm having trouble with this employee. It's just nice having somebody who's been an operator. I've opened, operated 22 restaurants over 30 years. So I've been around the block and, I come at it as a business advisor. It's your business. You know it better than anybody. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Have you looked at this type of thing, right?
That's awesome. We'll definitely do that.
Great. Any other questions?
Okay, if we don't have any other questions, thank you again, Kevin, for your time today and your commitment to helping small businesses. Um, you all have my EDC SBDC email if you want to contact me directly. If you're outside of our region, there is that American SBDC, find your SBDC link there to find your nearest network. Once you input your information there, your nearest network will come up with the information of how to contact them. So you'll have that information there. Um, and if you want to directly schedule an appointment with us to get started with signing up, or if you're already a client and you want to just schedule a time to meet with Kevin, feel free to use the link, the Calendly link, calendly.com at EDC SBDC. And if you have any other inquiries, you have the information at edcollaborative.com email as well. As mentioned, we will send you a follow-up email with the recordings of today's presentation in the next few days. And we hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again, Kevin, and we'll all talk